The bright blue light flashed across Commander Vexthar's control panel. His four-fingered hand moved quickly to silence the alarm. The ship shuddered again as another piece of space rock hit the outer hull. "Damage report," Vexthar said, his voice calm despite the danger. Engineering Officer Zalev looked up from her station. Her skin, normally a healthy purple shade, had paled with stress. "The quantum drive is damaged, Commander. We cannot continue to the outpost." Vexthar's inner eyelids blinked rapidly, a sign of deep thought among his species. The Galactic Confederation vessel Astral Seeker was now stranded in an unfamiliar star system. Their mission to study a newly discovered nebula would have to wait. "Nearest planet with repair capabilities?" he asked. Communications specialist Tara consulted her screens. "The only inhabited planet in this system is Sol 3. The locals call it Earth." She paused, her antennae twitching. "Sir, this planet is classified as Level 4, limited technology with no official contact." The command center fell silent. Confederation. Rules were very clear. Pre-contact civilizations were to be left alone until they developed faster than light travel on their own. It was the prime rule of the Confederation. "How bad is the damage?" Vexthar asked Zalev. "The drive will fail, completely within 14 rotations. We cannot reach another system." Chief Science Officer Renlox spoke up. "I have been monitoring their communications networks. These humans have basic space travel capabilities and sufficient metallurgical knowledge. They might be able to help with repairs." Vexthar made his decision. "Prepare a first contact message. We will request only the minimum help needed for repairs." He stood up from his command chair, his tall frame stretching after hours of tension. "And may the stars forgive us for breaking protocol." Paul Garcia was reviewing test results on a new fuel mixture when the alarm started blaring throughout NASA's Johnson Space Center. He jumped up from his desk, spilling coffee across his papers. "What's happening?" he asked his office mate, Olivia Bennett. She was already looking at her phone, eyes wide. "You're not going to believe this. There's an alien spaceship in orbit. It's all over the news." Paul laughed. "Very funny. I'm serious." She turned her phone so he could see the breaking news alert. "They're broadcasting some kind of message." Before Paul could respond, his desk phone rang. The voice of Director Frank Collins was tense. "Garcia, get to conference room A, now." 30 minutes later, Paul sat in stunned silence with 11 other specialists from various fields. The room was packed with military personnel, government officials, and scientists. On the large screen at the front of the room was a message, translated by computers from the alien broadcast. "Greetings, people of Earth. We are representatives of the Galactic Confederation. Our vessel has sustained damage while passing through your system. We request permission to enter orbit and obtain materials for repairs. We offer exchange of limited technological knowledge as compensation. We mean no harm." Director Collins addressed the room. "The President has authorized a response. Team, we need our best people to handle this situation." He looked directly at Paul. "Garcia, your work on experimental propulsion systems makes you our best candidate to understand their technology needs." Paul felt his heart racing. He had dreamed of encountering alien life since he was a child, but never imagined it would happen like this. "Sir, are we sure this is real?" "Multiple tracking stations have confirmed the object in orbit. It's approximately 400 meters in length, and it definitely wasn't there yesterday." 3 days later, Paul found himself aboard a military transport plane heading to a hastily established contact zone in the New Mexico desert. The international response team included scientists and diplomats from 27 countries, all assembled in record time. Susan Miller, a cultural anthropologist, sat next to him on the flight. "How are you holding up?" she asked. Paul stared out the window. "I still can't believe this is happening. First contact, and they chose our generation." Susan smiled. "They didn't choose us. Their ship broke down. We're just a cosmic pit stop." The contact site was a marvel of rapid construction. Military teams had established a secure perimeter around a large landing pad. Temporary buildings housed laboratories, meeting rooms, and living quarters. Armed guards stood at every entrance, a reminder of the world's lingering fear, despite the peaceful message. When the alien shuttle descended from the sky, Paul held his breath along with everyone else. It was smaller than he expected, about the size of a commercial airplane with a smooth silver surface that seemed to shimmer in the sunlight. The first alien to emerge was Commander Vexthar. He stood nearly 7 feet tall with light blue skin and large, expressive eyes. His translator device converted his speech to English with only a slight delay. "We thank you for your welcome," Vexthar said, addressing the assembled humans. "We regret the necessity of this contact before your species was prepared." The formal introductions took hours. Paul noticed that despite their alien appearance, the visitors showed recognizable emotions: caution, curiosity, and what seemed like embarrassment at their situation. When finally introduced to the alien engineers, Paul was surprised by their openness. Zalev, the chief engineer, showed him detailed schematics of their damaged systems. "Your quantum drive uses principles we've only theorized about," Paul said, examining the diagrams with wonder. "Your species is not far from similar discoveries," Zalev replied. Her voice, filtered through the translator, had a musical quality. "We estimate you would reach this technology within 100 of your years." As the first day of contact ended, Paul sat alone in his temporary quarters, making notes about everything he had learned. The repair project would take at least 3 months. 3 months of working alongside beings from another world. Director Collins visited him that evening. "What's your assessment, Garcia?" Paul looked up from his notes. "Their technology is advanced but understandable. The materials they need we can provide, and what they're offering in exchange." He shook his head in amazement. "Even the limited knowledge they're willing to share could advance our science by decades." "And your impression of them? As beings?" Paul thought about Zalev's patient explanations, Vexthar's formal but kind demeanor. "They're people, sir. Different from us in many ways, but still people. They have rules, concerns, curiosities. They're worried about breaking their protocols by coming here." Collins nodded. "Operation Welcome Hand begins officially tomorrow. History is watching us, Garcia." After the director left, Paul stood by his window looking up at the stars. Somewhere up there, the main alien ship waited in orbit. They had come for repairs, a simple transaction, but Paul already sensed that both species would gain much more from this unexpected meeting. What neither humans nor aliens could yet know was how much this accidental encounter would change both their worlds forever. 2 weeks passed since the aliens arrived on Earth. The repair work was going well, but slower than expected. The humans and aliens had to learn to work together despite their many differences. Commander Vexthar stood at the window of his temporary office at the contact site. He watched humans move between buildings, still amazed by how quickly they had built this facility. His daily report to the ship in orbit was due soon, but he was troubled by what he would say. There was a knock at his door. Susan Miller, the human cultural expert, entered with her usual friendly smile. "Good morning, Commander. I hope I'm not interrupting," she said. Vexthar turned from the window. "Not at all. I was just thinking about our progress." Susan placed a tablet on his desk. "I have a proposal for you. My team thinks we can work better together if we understand each other more." Vexthar felt uneasy. The Confederation rules were very clear about limiting cultural exchange with developing species. "What kind of understanding do you suggest?" "Nothing that breaks your rules," Susan said quickly. "But your crew has been working non-stop. They seem tired and confused by our ways. I thought some cultural experiences might help us work together better." Vexthar considered her words. It was true that his crew was struggling to adapt. Engineer Zalev had reported several misunderstandings with the human workers. Perhaps some controlled cultural exchange would improve their working relationship. "What do you propose?" he asked. Susan's face brightened. "For starters, a shared meal. Food is important in human culture. And maybe some music. Nothing formal, just a chance to relax together." Vexthar hesitated, then nodded. "I will allow it. For the sake of the repair work." That evening, The large meeting hall was transformed. Tables were arranged in a circle rather than rows. Human and alien foods were kept separate for safety, but the shared space created a more relaxed atmosphere. Paul Garcia watched as Zalev cautiously approached a small group of human engineers. Their earlier work session had ended with frustration on both sides. "May I join you?" Zalev asked, her translator making her voice sound slightly mechanical. "Please do," Paul said, moving to make space. "We were just talking about your quantum drive. The principles are fascinating." Zalev seemed surprised by their continued interest even after work hours. "You humans are very curious." "It's one of our better qualities," Paul said with a smile. "We're always wanting to learn more." Across the room, Dr. William Johnson was deep in conversation with Chief Medical Officer Renlox. William had brought medical journals showing human advances in treating diseases. "Your approach is interesting," Renlox said, examining the screens. "You focus on the connection between emotions and physical health. In Confederation medicine, we try to separate them." William looked surprised. "But they're completely connected. Stress affects the body. Joy can help healing." Renlox's inner eyelids blinked rapidly. "This idea challenges our medical science. We see emotions as distractions. But they're part of what makes life worth living," William said. In another corner, communications specialist Tayara was surrounded by human linguists. Her antennae moved with excitement as she listened to recordings of different Earth languages. "You have thousands of languages on one planet?" she asked in disbelief. Alan Peterson, the lead linguist, nodded. "Each one reflects the history and values of different human cultures. They show how diverse our thinking can be." Tayara touched the translation device at her throat. "Our Confederation has one standard language for all species. It is efficient, but—" She paused, searching for words. "Perhaps we lose something by this efficiency." As the evening continued, Susan approached Commander Vexthar, who stood watching from a distance. "What do you think?" she asked. "It is not what I expected," he admitted. "Your species seems to value differences. In the Confederation, we work to eliminate differences. It is more logical." Susan considered his words. "But different perspectives lead to new ideas. That's how we solve problems." "An interesting theory," Vexthar said. He watched Zalev laughing with the human engineers, a behavior he had never seen from her before. The next morning, Paul arrived at the workshop to find Zalev already there, but something was different. Instead of the formal workspace they had used before, she had rearranged the area. Tools were organized differently, and she had added diagrams that combined both human and alien technology concepts. "I had an idea during our talk last night," she explained. "If we combine your material science with our energy principles, we might solve the repair problems faster." Paul studied her diagrams with growing excitement. "This could work, it's brilliant." Zalev's skin flushed a deeper purple, which Paul had learned was their version of a blush. "It came from listening to how your people approach problems. You look for connections we might miss." Throughout the contact site, similar changes were happening. Dr. Renlox invited William to observe alien medical procedures, asking questions about emotional responses that he had never considered important before. Tayara began recording human stories and songs, calling them research but clearly enjoying them personally. Commander Vexthar noticed these changes with mixed feelings. The repair work was progressing faster, which was good, but his crew was becoming too interested in human ways. This went against everything the Confederation taught about maintaining distance from developing species. "You seem troubled, Catherine," Wilson said, joining him at lunch. As director of the operation, she met with him daily to discuss progress. "My crew is becoming too involved with your people," Vexthar admitted. "It is not our way." Catherine watched the mixed groups working together around the facility. "Sometimes the best discoveries happen by accident. You came here for repairs, but perhaps we can give each other more than that." Vexthar didn't answer, but her words stayed with him. That afternoon, when he made his report to the Confederation, he left out many details about the growing connections between the species. For the first time in his long career, He chose not to tell the complete truth to his superiors. As the second week of repairs ended, both humans and aliens began to realize that this unexpected meeting was changing them in ways none had anticipated. The repairs to the ship were progressing, but something else was being built at the same time, a bridge between two very different ways of seeing the universe. 6 weeks after the aliens arrived, disaster struck without warning. Paul Garcia was working with Zalev on the quantum drive components when the alarms began to sound. The high-pitched wail made everyone in the workshop freeze. "What's happening?" Paul asked, looking up from the delicate circuit he was soldering. Zalev's face changed color rapidly, her purple skin turning almost white. She pressed a button on her wrist device and spoke rapidly in her native language. The response made her antennae flatten against her head, a sign of extreme distress, Paul had learned. "There is a problem with the temporary stabilizers on the main ship," she said, her translator struggling to keep up with her rapid speech. "A radiation leak has started. It is very dangerous." Within minutes, the contact site became a center of frantic activity. Commander Vexthar called an emergency meeting in the main conference room. His normally calm face showed deep concern as he addressed the mixed group of aliens and humans. "The quantum drive's temporary stabilizers are failing," he explained. "This is creating a radiation leak that could expand into what you would call a small space-time rupture." Catherine Wilson, who had been leading the human side of the operation, asked the question everyone was thinking. "What does that mean for us?" Vexthar's large eyes blinked slowly. "If not contained, the rupture could cause an explosion affecting a large portion of your planet." The room fell silent. Then Vexthar continued, his voice formal and distant. "Confederation protocol is clear in this situation. We must sacrifice the ship and evacuate our crew using emergency teleportation." Dr. Renlock spoke up. "Commander, the teleportation will create a smaller explosion. It would still destroy this facility and everything within 50 of their miles." Paul looked around at the faces of his colleagues, both human and alien. In just 6 weeks, they had built something important here, something beyond the repair work. The thought of it ending in disaster was unbearable. "There must be another way," he said, standing up. "What if we could contain the radiation leak long enough to neutralize it?" Zalev shook her head. "The containment technology needed does not exist on your planet." "Maybe not exactly," Paul said, "but we have similar technology for our nuclear reactors. We use specialized cooling systems to prevent meltdowns." The alien engineers looked skeptical, but Paul continued. "If we modify your designs using our cooling principles, we might be able to create a temporary solution." Vexthar's expression was unreadable. "This would require sharing restricted technology with humans. It violates our most important laws." Catherine stepped forward. "Commander, with respect, sometimes rules need to bend before they break completely. Your protocols weren't written for situations like this." She turned to address everyone in the room. "We have brilliant minds from 2 worlds here. If we work together, we can find a solution that saves both the ship and our planet." Vexthar stood in silence for a long moment. His entire career, his belief in the Confederation's wisdom told him to follow protocol. But something else, something he had learned during these weeks with humans, made him hesitate. "You may be right," he finally said. "We will try your approach." The next 12 hours were the most intense of Paul's life. He worked side by side with Zalev, combining Earth's nuclear cooling technology with the aliens' advanced materials. Other teams focused on different aspects of the problem: radiation containment, energy redirection, and emergency backup systems. Dr. Renlox and William worked to develop protection for the workers who would need to manually adjust the containment field. The radiation levels would be dangerous, possibly fatal to both species. "This protection will not be completely effective," Renlox warned. "Whoever makes the final adjustments will face serious health risks." As the hours passed, the radiation leak grew worse. Reports from the ship in orbit showed that the rupture was beginning to form. They were running out of time. Finally, the combined team had a working plan. They would create a specialized containment field around the damaged section of the ship, then use modified cooling technology, to reduce the energy of the particles causing the rupture. The problem is the final calibration, Zalev explained to the group. Someone must manually adjust the field projectors after they are in place. The radiation will prevent remote operation. Everyone understood what this meant. Someone would have to risk their life to save both worlds. "I'll do it," Paul said without hesitation. "I understand the technology best." "You cannot," Zalev argued. "The alien radiation will affect you more severely than my species. I should go." "We'll both go," Paul decided. The adjustments need to be made simultaneously on both sides of the containment field. One person can't do it alone. Vexthar looked at the human with new respect. "This is beyond what we could ask of your species." Catherine put her hand on Paul's shoulder. "This is what humans do, Commander. We face impossible situations together." As the shuttle carried Paul and Zalev up to the damaged ship, they were mostly silent. Both understood the danger they were facing. The protective suits they wore would only shield them for a short time. "In the Confederation," Zalev said finally, "we are taught that developing species like humans are primitive in their thinking, that you are driven by emotions rather than logic." She looked at Paul. "I now believe this view is wrong. Your emotions give you strength we have lost." Paul smiled behind his helmet visor. "And your logic gives you clarity we often lack. Maybe we need both." The shuttle docked with the main ship. As they made their way to the damaged section, they could see the eerie blue glow of the radiation leak. The ship's corridors, normally bright and clean, were dark and filled with swirling energy patterns. "The containment equipment is ready," said Tayara's voice through their communication systems. "You will have exactly 7 minutes to make the adjustments before the radiation overwhelms your protection." Paul and Zalev moved to opposite sides of the damaged section. The plan required perfect timing and coordination. As they began the calibration process, warning alarms sounded throughout the ship. "The rupture is expanding faster than predicted," came Renlox's urgent voice. "You have less than 3 minutes remaining." Working with desperate speed, Paul made the final adjustments to his side of the containment field. Across the chamber, he could see Zalev doing the same. The radiation was already affecting their equipment, causing readings to fluctuate wildly. "Almost there," Paul called out, his voice strained. "Just need to stabilize the frequency." As he made the final adjustment, a surge of energy knocked him backward. For a moment, he thought they had failed. Then he saw the containment field spring to life, a shimmering barrier enclosing the damaged area. "It's working," Zalev shouted. "The cooling system is containing the radiation." Through the haze of pain and dizziness from radiation exposure, Paul felt a moment of pure joy. Two species working together had accomplished what neither could have done alone. As he lost consciousness, his last thought was that this unexpected crisis had created an unbreakable bond between their worlds. Paul woke up in the medical bay of the contact facility. The white ceiling above him came slowly into focus. His body felt heavy and tired, but the burning pain he remembered from the ship was gone. He turned his head and saw Dr. William Johnson, checking some readings on a screen. "Welcome back," William said with a smile. "You've been asleep for almost 2 days." Paul tried to sit up but felt too weak. "Zalev, is she okay?" "She's recovering well. Her species handles radiation differently than humans. She woke up yesterday." Relief washed over Paul. "And the ship? Did the containment field hold?" William nodded. "It worked perfectly. The combined cooling system stabilized the radiation and prevented the rupture. The ship is safe, and so is Earth." He patted Paul's shoulder. "You're both heroes." In the next bed, separated by a curtain, Paul heard Renlock speaking softly. The alien doctor had been working closely with the human medical team to treat both Paul and Zalev. "The human's recovery rate is remarkable," Renlox was saying. "Their cells have regenerative capabilities we didn't expect." Later that day, Commander Vexthar came to visit. He stood beside Paul's bed, his tall frame seeming less rigid than usual. "Engineer Garcia," he said formally, Your actions have saved many lives, both human and Confederation. I am personally grateful." Paul smiled weakly. "Just doing my job. Commander, how are the repairs going now?" "The crisis actually helped solve some of our technical problems. The quantum drive is almost fully repaired. We estimate we can depart in 10 of your Earth days." The news should have been welcome, but Paul felt a strange sadness. The aliens would leave, and this extraordinary time would end. In just 2 months, these visitors from another world had changed everything. "What will happen when you report? Back to the Confederation?" Paul asked. "Won't you get in trouble for sharing technology with us?" Vexthar's inner eyelids blinked rapidly. "My report will require careful consideration. The Confederation has strict protocols about contact with developing species. The normal procedure would be to recommend memory adjustments for both my crew and the humans we interacted with." Paul felt a chill. "You mean erasing our memories of all this?" "That is the standard protocol, yes. But—" Vexathar paused, seeming to struggle with his thoughts. "I am considering alternatives." Over the next few days, as Paul recovered, he noticed changes throughout the contact facility. The alien crew members were collecting personal items from their human colleagues, strictly against Confederation rules. Zalif had recorded hundreds of hours of human music. Renlox had compiled extensive research on human emotional responses. Teira had filled data crystals with Earth languages and literature. When Paul was finally strong enough to leave the medical bay, he found Zalif in the workshop. She was carefully packing away the tools they had created together. "You should be resting," she said when she saw him. "I've rested enough." Paul sat down on a nearby stool. "I wanted to ask you something. What will you remember about Earth when you're gone?" Zaliv's antennae twitched with emotion. "Everything. The way your people approach problems with both logic and feeling. The music that seems to have no purpose but brings such joy. The many different ways you communicate." She touched a small device on her wrist. "I have recorded as much as I can, though it is not permitted." "Will they really take your memories when you return?" "It is possible, but memories are complex things. Some leave traces even after adjustment." She looked at him directly. "I do not wish to forget Earth or the humans I have met here." That evening, Catherine Wilson organized a small gathering for the recovery team. As the humans and aliens shared a meal together, Paul noticed Commander Vexthar sitting alone, watching everyone with a troubled expression. Paul joined him. "Not hungry, Commander. I am preoccupied with my final report," Vexthar admitted. "In 2,000 years of Confederation history, no captain has faced quite this situation. What options are you considering?" Vexthar looked at the mixed groups of humans and aliens talking animatedly around the room. "I could follow protocol exactly, report minimal contact, recommend memory adjustments, classify Earth as a level 4 civilization to be observed but not engaged." He paused. "Or I could present the Confederation Council with an alternate view. That humans, despite your technological limitations, have unique qualities the Confederation has lost over millennia. That your emotional intelligence combined with logical thinking creates innovation we no longer achieve." Paul was surprised by the commander's honesty. What would that mean for Earth? It could mean many things. Perhaps reclassification of your species. Perhaps limited cultural exchange. Or perhaps nothing. The Council is very conservative. Before Paul could respond, Catherine Wilson approached them. "Commander, could I speak with you privately?" Vexathar nodded and followed her to a quiet corner of the room. Paul watched them talking seriously for several minutes. Then Catherine handed Vexthar a small envelope. Later, Paul asked her about it. "What did you give him?" Catherine smiled mysteriously. "A letter. Something for him to remember us by." On the final night before the aliens' departure, Paul couldn't sleep. He walked through the quiet facility, remembering the incredible events of the past weeks. In just 2 months, humanity had learned they were not alone in the universe. They had worked alongside beings from another world, shared knowledge, faced disaster together, and formed friendships that crossed the stars. He found himself at the observation deck, looking up at the night sky. The alien ship was visible as a small bright point moving slowly across the stars. "You cannot sleep either?" Zalev asked, joining him at the window. "Too much to think about," Paul admitted. "Everything will be different after tomorrow." Zalev was quiet for a moment. "In the Confederation, we have a saying, knowledge once gained cannot be truly lost. Even if memories fade, understanding remains." "I hope that's true," Paul said, "because I don't want to forget any of this." "Nor do I," she replied. "The Confederation believes perfect logic is the highest goal of intelligent life. But here on Earth, I have learned that there is wisdom in uncertainty, in questions without clear answers, and connections that defy logical explanation." They stood in silence, watching the stars. Tomorrow the aliens would return to their ship and leave Earth behind. Their mission for repairs would be complete. But the true exchange, the sharing of different ways of seeing the universe, had only just begun. Back in his quarters, Commander Vexthar sat alone, contemplating the small paper envelope Catherine Wilson had given him. Inside was a handwritten letter, a primitive form of communication by Confederation standards. Yet its very simplicity carried a power that their advanced technology sometimes lacked. "Some things are worth remembering," she had told him, "even when remembering is difficult." As the commander prepared for their departure, he made his final decision about the report he would give to the Confederation Council. It would not be the report they expected. But after his time on Earth, Vexthar had learned that sometimes the unexpected path was the one most worth taking. 5 years passed since the astral seeker left Earth. The day of departure had been emotional for both species. Humans and aliens who had worked closely together said goodbye, knowing they might never meet again. As the alien ship rose into the sky, disappearing among the stars, a new chapter began for both worlds. On Earth, things had changed dramatically. The limited technology the aliens shared had accelerated human development in several fields. New energy systems based on Confederation principles were being tested. Medical research inspired by alien biology had led to treatments for previously incurable diseases. But the most significant changes were not technological. Paul Garcia now led the United Earth Initiative, an international program continuing the cooperation that had begun during Operation Welcome Hand. Today, he stood before the newly completed Stellar Communication Array in New Mexico, built on the site where the aliens had first landed. This array represents humanity's first attempt to maintain contact with other civilized worlds, he told the gathered crowd of scientists, politicians, and journalists. "While we don't know if the Confederation will answer, we want them to know we are still here, still learning, still reaching for the stars." Susan Miller stood nearby, smiling with pride. Her work on cross-species communication had become the foundation for a new field of study. "Do you think they'll respond?" she asked Paul after the ceremony. "I don't know," he admitted. "But even if they don't, we've learned so much from trying to communicate with them." In her office at the new Global Space Agency, Catherine Wilson reviewed the latest designs for Earth's first faster-than-light test vehicle. The project combined human ingenuity with the principles they had learned from studying the alien quantum drive. On her desk sat a framed photo from 5 years ago, the combined team of humans and aliens who had saved both the ship and Earth. Sometimes she wondered what had happened to Commander Vexthar after he returned to the Confederation. Had he faced punishment for breaking protocols? Had the letter she gave him made any difference? She hoped he had found a way to preserve the connection between their worlds, even if only in memory. Across the galaxy, former Commander Vexthar sat in his small office on a distant Confederation outpost. His demotion had been expected after he refused memory adjustment. In the eyes of the Confederation Council, he had failed in his duty by allowing extensive contact with a developing species. But he had not lost everything. The Council had accepted his alternative recommendation. Earth would be designated a protected cultural preserve, to be studied but not directly contacted for at least 1 century. This classification would give humans time to develop in their own way, while allowing the Confederation to learn from Earth's unique approach to existence. Vexthar opened a hidden compartment in his desk and removed a paper envelope, worn from frequent handling. Inside was Catherine Wilson's handwritten letter. He had read it hundreds of times over the years, finding new meaning in her words with each reading. The universe brought you here for repairs, but perhaps what needed repairing wasn't just your ship. Come back when you're ready. We'll be looking at the same stars. His communication panel chimed, indicating a message from Zalev. After returning from Earth, she had chosen to become a cultural researcher rather than continue as an engineer. Her studies of human music had created a small but passionate movement within the Confederation. I've received another transmission. From Earth, her message read. Their new communication array is impressive. The Council has ordered us not to respond, but I thought you would want to know they are still reaching out to us. Vexithar smiled. The humans continued to surprise him, even after all these years. In the great meeting hall of the Confederation Central World, a debate was underway. A growing minority of representatives argued for reconsideration of the non-contact policy with Earth. The humans continue to advance at an extraordinary rate, said one advocate. Their approach to science combines logical analysis with intuitive leaps that our methods do not allow for. Their art forms contain emotional complexity that many of our citizens find compelling, added another. The music and literature smuggled from Earth has sparked a cultural renaissance in the younger generations. The debate continued, unresolved but gaining momentum with each passing year. Throughout the Confederation, those who had visited Earth or encountered Earth culture through unofficial channels had begun sharing their experiences. A quiet revolution was taking place, not through confrontation, but through the power of different ideas. On a university campus in the Confederation's education sector, Dr. Renlox presented his controversial research to a group of medical students. For 2,000 years, we have treated emotions as evolutionary leftovers, distractions to be managed through logical discipline, he explained. But my studies of human medicine suggest emotions serve vital functions in decision-making, social, bonding, and even physical health. A student raised her hand. But the Council teaches that pure logic is the highest form of intelligence. Perhaps, Renlox replied. But is a being who cannot feel compassion truly intelligent? The humans taught me that some knowledge can only be gained through emotional experience. In another part of the Confederation, Tayara had established an underground network for sharing human languages and literature. Her apartment was filled with translated copies of Earth's greatest works, poetry, novels, philosophical texts. Each human language shapes thought in unique ways, she explained to her fascinated listeners. By learning these different patterns, we expand our own capacity for understanding the universe. Back on Earth, night had fallen over the New Mexico desert. Paul stood alone by the communication array looking up at the stars. Somewhere out there, the beings they had once called visitors were going about their lives. Had they forgotten Earth? Or had their brief time together changed them as much as it had changed humanity? As he turned to leave, a technician rushed up to him, eyes wide with excitement. Sir, the array just picked up a signal. It's faint, but it matches the frequency pattern of the alien communications from 5 years ago. Paul's heart raced as he hurried to the control room. On the main screen, a simple message appeared, translated by the systems they had developed based on the aliens' technology. We remember. Knowledge once gained cannot be truly lost. Keep looking at the stars. The message was unsigned, possibly sent by a single Confederation member rather than officially, but it confirmed what Paul had always believed. The connection forged between their worlds had not ended when the ship departed. What had begun as a simple request for repairs had grown into something far more significant. Two different species had looked beyond their differences and found something valuable in each other's way of seeing the universe. And that shared vision would continue to shape both worlds for generations to come. As dawn broke over Earth, scientists and citizens alike wondered what the future might hold. The universe had proved to be full of unexpected encounters and possibilities. Humanity had taken its first steps into a larger community of intelligent life, carrying with them their unique blend of logic and emotion, science and art. questions, and dreams. They had given repairs to visitors from the stars. In return, they had received something much more valuable, a new understanding of their place in the cosmos, and the knowledge that they were not alone in their journey.